Engineering students, this is your tutorial for assembling the rocket and a few other fun stuff. Let's get right started. So what we've done so far is you've created all your parts for your rocket. That's your fin, your body, your blast cap, and your cone, possibly another fin if you had two different kinds of fin. And I'm going to go through and demo how we assemble everything together, put it together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to New, and we're going to let this dialog box open up here in a second. And what we're going to do is we're going to select a standard.iam right here. This is going to be an Inventor Assembly, and we're going to hit Create. Now, for the first time for you guys, it's going to take a little bit of time to load up. It's got to load the entire feature catalog, and it's got to load all the ribbons and the tools and that kind of stuff. Now that Inventor is open, first thing we're going to see is this little assembly tab. We are going to go to Place, and we're going to place in pretty much our first component. Generally, one of the easiest components to place in is going to be your body. So what I did is I navigated to the folder in which I contain all my rocket parts, and I'm going to select and open the body. So it's going to open the part inside the assembly, so it's not technically opening the part. And you see it comes out in this little opaque, or I should say transparent blue kind of look. I'm just going to place it anywhere. Now it's going to take a little bit of a second to place down. And after it's placed down, you can place actually multiple copies of it. Right now we want to place one copy of the body, so I'm going to right click and just select OK. So I'm OK with this one body. What I'm going to do right away is I'm going to go over to the body, and I'm going to go to the browser bar, to the body, and I'm going to right click on it. And I'm going to go all the way down, and I'm going to ground my part. Now what this does is it kind of freezes it in place. It fixes it in place so I can't move it, and it's going to help us constrain it a little bit here. So now that I have my body, I'm going to start placing in some of my other parts. So I'm going to go back to place, and I'm going to place in my blast cap. So I just placed my blast cap in there. I'm done placing that, so I'm going to hit right click OK. I'm going to place my cone. There's my cone, and I'm going to go ahead and place in one of my fins. So there's my cone, my blast cap, my fin, and my body. Now I'm going to start constraining this. First thing I'm going to constrain, easiest, is I'm going to place the blast cap on top of the body and then the cone on top of the blast cap. I am going to go to Constrain. So I get this Place Constraint dialog box, and here's pretty much where you mate pieces together, it's called. And there are multiple, there's actually 5 different types of mates, and what we're going to use is just simple, it's called mate. And there's 2 different mates. There is a mate called mate, and that's where 2 faces are opposite each other where they can touch, or 2 faces are parallel with each other looking the same direction. We're going to select mate because we want to select both this surface and this surface and place them on top of each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. As you can see, it's very thin paper, remember, and I'm going to select this outer edge of the circle. So it selects that outer edge of the circle, and you can see I select the bottom one all the way around. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place this on this top edge surface. And you can see there it makes a nifty little sound, and it actually constrains it right there. The only thing I have to do is hit Apply. So once you hit Apply, it will apply the constraints, the blast cap, to the body. So if I go to the browser bar and I look at the body, and I open this little plus view, and I look at the blast cap and open the plus view, you can see here that underneath those 2 there are the mates. So it shows this body is mated to this blast cap. So if I ever need to delete the constraint, I can right click and delete it if I need to redo it, or if I need to change it, I can edit the constraint. Multiple different things I can do. So once I have the blast cap on, I'm going to go Constrain. I am once again going to go in here and I'm going to select the bottom of my cone, and I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to select the top of my blast cap. And it's going to place the cone right on there. So I'm going to hit Apply. I'm going to close out and I'm going to check a few things. One thing I'm going to check is I'm going to grab the cone. You can see what happens here. This is something we don't want. This is not supposed to be constrained like that. So what I need to do, as I showed this, I want to go back. I'm going to delete that constraint, and I'm going to find a new way to constrain it. So I'm going to go constrain, and this time I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to get the bottom part right here, and I'm going to select this bottom surface. So it places those together. Going to go ahead and hit apply, and now those surfaces are touching each other, but they're not set up correctly. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to constrain, and this time you can see here I'm actually going to constrain the center points. So each one of these has a center line. When I constrain those center lines together, that means it's not going to move left or right or up or down or anything like that. So now when I go back and I try, it actually rotates, which is fine, but I can't pull it off. So if I grab it, I can't pull it off. So those are pretty much the easy ones, the blast cap and the cone. Those are pretty easy, no problems there. Now what's going to be difficult here is actually going to be the fin. The fin is where it's going to get pretty difficult for us because we have to do some pretty difficult constraints. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the bottom view here, and I'm going to zoom in. We can see all the way to our blast cap right there. And now it's kind of difficult to find the fin because the fin is so small. So what I'm going to do for the fin is I'm going to go constrain, and this is the first constraint I'm going to place on it. I'm going to place a tangent constraint. And I'm going to select this body, and then I'm going to rotate around my body here. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to select the edge of my fin. Now if I zoom out, we can see what happened. The fin now is going to be attached to the body. Alright, so now that I have my fin constrained to my body, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just rotate my piece until I see the bottom. Like I said, this gets to be a little bit difficult because you can barely see that piece of paper depending on how your computer renders it. But now the issue is this piece will be able to pretty much like move back and forth because it's just different like that. We really don't want that to happen. So what we're going to do now is we've got to constrain it, and now we're going to constrain it so the bottom of this and the bottom of our fin are both flush. So we're going to apply that, and what that will do is it will put it at the bottom of our piece. Now I'm going to go back to the bottom, and it's right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another constraint. This is where it gets a little bit more difficult for us. Is I got to constrain this so it's vertical with the axis. So I'm going to look at my origin plane. I'm going to look at my different axes here. So I have an axis right here, right there, and right there. So my x-axis, you can see, is going the direction I want my fin to go, straight up and down. So I'm going to go ahead and constrain, and I'm going to do an angle constraint. And you can see here, since I had the x-axis selected, it automatically selects the x-axis. And I'm going to do a 0-degree constraint to one of the edges. So that means 0 degrees, they're both going to be going parallel. I hit apply. And now we're going to zoom in here. And we're just going to always test to see if this can move or not. So you can see I can still move it. And that's not what I want. So you can move left and right. And I don't want it to move left and right, though I can't spin it around. I want it to be in one place. So now I have to do one last constraint. Oh, excuse me. And here is going to be my last constraint. I'm going to do one more constraint. I'm going to do a tangent constraint, and I'm going to tangent this side to this body. Now, as you can see, it places it off to the side, and I don't want it off to the side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to offset it. So I'm going to offset it 1/2 of the diameter of my body to put it right in the center. So in this case, the overall diameter of my body was negative was 0.75. It was a little bit thicker than yours, so don't worry. And then I divide that by 2 and I place a negative to move it back to the left. Actually, you know what? I think it was 625. If I go to the side, yep, it looks like it's lined up. So I hit apply, cancel, and now I have one of my fins directly in the center. I can't move it if you apply all those constraints. So that was quite a few constraints. It was one tangent to the body, it was a flush to the bottom, it was an angle to the axis, and it was a tangent to the body. So that means it can't move. The last thing I've got to do is, for me, I have to place 2 more fins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a pattern. And I am going to pattern this object, so I select it, and then I'm going to go to the circular pattern, and I'm going to select what I want to pattern it around, which will be that circular. So you can see I just placed 3 more fins in there, but I only have 3, so I'm going to change that to 3, and right now it's set at 90 degrees. I want it equally all the way around, so 360 divided by 3 is 120, so I put in 120 degrees. I hit OK, and I now have my rocket in full glory. There it is, fully constrained, ready to go. So now my next step is I just go ahead and save this assembly. So this is the full rocket. I just give it a name there. And now what you can do is you can place your rocket into your working drawings with all your pieces, and you can go to the next step, which is creating those as pictures and placing those into your project report.